My name is Matt Belcher. I'm a builder from the St. Louis area. Been in the business for about 30 years now. We're actually in the process of rebuilding homes from our Good Friday tornado that we had out there. So, we're doing a lot of rebuild now and have a lot of experience with that. I also have been heavily involved. I was a code official in my former life for a period of time, and have been heavily involved with building codes and industry issues and things like that. So I'm involved on a national scale that way. So Chris, I had to come down and speak at this. I jumped at the chance because I don't have a lot of talents, but this is one of them. So I'm happy to come down and help when I can. And it's the old adage, you're never an expert unless you're from out of town. So I was happy to come down and talk. So what this presentation is, I also am a Build Green, and I've got the next presentation I'm going to do about this. This presentation is kind of the building process in simple terms. That's the title of it. And hopefully you all got a lot of questions for me because I'm happy to answer them. I just want to tell you one thing. You've got a heck of a lot of good talent on your bench at this Home Builders Association here in Joplin. I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of these guys over the years and different functions we do on a statewide level and things like that. So, once I was sitting on a plane in Dallas and got a text from my wife when she found out that the tornado hit here. And, I immediately got home and emailed Crystal and the guys I know, the Philpotts and some of the guys I know down here to check on them. And, you guys are definitely in all of our prayers, but there's builders all around the country that are in support of these guys. They're there, but for the grace of God go we. And so we're happy to come down and help out and do whatever we can, get going back on the feet. So I am going to just, in general terms, just talk about some of the benefits and some of the processes. And please, if you have a question, as I go, throw your hand up and I'm happy to answer questions at the end. We got about 30 minutes or so. I'll probably take 15, 20 minutes of speaking anyway. It's hard for me to stop speaking at 20 or 30 minutes, but we'll do that so we can answer questions afterwards too. So in the building process, I'm trying to stay out of your way so you can see the screen. On both sides of the issue, the builder and my customer, our focus is on the costs and the most efficient process to build that home. The quality of materials we can build a home with now are just exponentially better than they were 5 or 10 years ago. Just because the manufacturers are building better products, their process to manufacture has gotten more efficient. So we're building better homes now just by virtue of the fact we have better materials to do it with. So, obviously if you're rebuilding or even remodeling or rehabbing an existing home, that's definitely to your advantage. The other advantage is, from a cost standpoint, is the manufacturers are competing against each other. 6, 7 years ago, when I was building my green homes, being more efficient, if I wanted to buy water efficient fixtures, say, for faucets for your sinks, I had to buy Hansgrohe or Toto, German or Japanese made, and they were all high-end stuff, so they cost a lot of money. But now, Kohler and Moen and a lot of manufacturers here are making them. They compete against each other, and so it's raised the quality level. So again, we're talking about efficiencies, but those efficiencies also help manage the cost. Now, from the standpoint of somebody that's going to have a house built, buy a house, or even remodel or rehab an existing home, the bottom line is still the bottom line, and always will be. What can I afford? What's it going to cost me? And if the two meet, then we can probably do a deal. If they don't, we're going to have to either change or scrap it. And so we need to focus, the education that these guys have, because they're in the market every day like I am, pricing different materials. So sometimes it's a combination of different materials. We can do a better job if we spend a little bit here, and we could still, do some things in this part of the house to keep them in your budget. So also the relationship with the customer is very important too. That communication is key. And, the better builders, the experienced builders, everything is kind of out on the table between the customer and the builder. There's no hidden agendas or anything. you as a buyer of a home or somebody that's having work done, you need to communicate what you want with that builder. And then it's his expertise that takes that and makes it happen within your budget. So, you know, it's just a straightforward process. And again, the numbers are where it all ends. We have to be able to build what you want within your budget. And on top of that, we still have to have, you know, if you're getting a loan, which most people are, usually there's an appraiser involved, and it has to appraise at what we say it's going to be worth, you know, to be able to make that loan. So there's a lot of different issues like that that are in play that we always have to pay attention to throughout the process. And, you know, that's something, again, these guys, builders that are building here in Joplin, are no different than me that's building in that part of the state. We have those same parameters that we work in on the business side of what we do. And obviously, with experience and time, and if you get good at what you do, obviously the reputation of yourself and your business is going to grow because of it. You know, if you're able to do those things, yeah, I've got customers I built for 15, 18 years ago that I can still call up and show their home. You know, I'll send somebody in to clean it for them or something, do something nice. But you know, those relationships with the customers and that reputation, that's a strong message, you know, when you're doing a deal like that. There's things that we concentrate on in the building process. It starts with a team. You have the customer, obviously, and the builder. We'll have a design professional involved, an architect or somebody that's going to do the design. And that interaction is extremely important. It all starts with a design, because if an architect designs a building that you can't afford to build, it's a moot point. So it starts with that communication process. They can design a building that you can afford. I've got guys I work with now, and there's guys here that are very good at what they do. They can design a house that's, you know, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 square feet, but they're good at what they do, so it feels bigger on the inside. You know, it's just open and airy and flows better, performs well. And what we do as builders, you know, we're into the sticks and bricks part of it. Our main concern is the envelope. You know, we're trying to keep you away from the weather outside, and water is a builder's worst enemy. So what we try to do is do a better job with the building envelope. We do a better job insulating it, which again we can do now because of the materials that are available to us. You know, we seal the envelope up really nice, and if you stick around when I do the green building part next, I'll get into more detail about that. But because there's greater focus on that side of it. But that's where it starts, with that design and then the building envelope, and then what we finish on the inside. You know, all my customers are interested in nice finishes. You know, they want to spend their money where it shows. We kind of got away from the fact that we didn't worry about what's behind the walls, because you couldn't see it and why pay for it, but that's a very important part of the building right there. So, you know, we're able to do a better job with that and still be cost effective. And then get our floor plan design, something that's comfortable, do a better job with the building envelope to make it more efficient, cut down on your energy bills, and then we can concentrate on what types of equipment we put in there. You know, we used to design homes that were again, we didn't pay quite the attention to efficiencies and things like that, and we'd put equipment in there that, you know, the biggest concern a lot of guys had was they just wanted to put something in there that would really overdo the job a little bit, because they didn't want to get a phone call saying, well, we've got an upstairs bedroom that's either too hot or too cold or whatever. So they just oversize the equipment to make that problem go away. The problem is, when you do that, you take the balance out of the air and you can create indoor air quality issues and things like that. So you get a team put together with your design professional, your builder, the HVAC person, and the electrician, plumber. What we normally do in our process, and these guys do the same, we all get together and we kind of virtually build that building at the conference table there. And we eliminate a lot of the problems that might otherwise occur in the field right there at that conference room table. It's much more efficient, it's less costly, it keeps the overall job cost down. And then when you get to the field and you start building, where the clock's ticking, you save time in the process. So, that's the whole focus, is just on those efficiencies and getting that team put together. Obviously, the client is a hugely important part of that team. So we look at tighter building envelopes to increase the efficiency of our equipment. And these are all the kind of the guts of the building, if you will. These are the things you don't think about, but this is where a lot of the money in your budget's going to go in these processes. So, what we try to do is make sure we get the best bang for the buck, if you will. Do a better job, a stronger building. The buildings we can build now are just, with the materials we have, the engineering that's behind them are infinitely stronger and more efficient than their counterparts that were built just 20 years ago or more. Just the improvements in the technologies. So, and then you're able to really dial in how your equipment's going to be used. It adds to the comfort level that you're going to feel in that home, which is kind of what you're all about, and also helps reduce your utility bills when it's done properly. And that's becoming really more the industry standard. I'm going to talk real quick. I'll talk a little bit more about this in the green side, but everybody's interested in things like geothermal and solar energy, things like that. So I'm just going to briefly touch on these subjects. Geothermal energy is basically solar energy. You're just taking the sun's heat that's put into the crust of the earth and using the earth as a heat exchanger. It's still a little expensive to do. However, there's some great tax credits out there. If you're going to do a high efficiency HVAC system, there's some incentives out there and tax credits, and there's a lot of lenders out there now that will monetize those tax credits. That means they'll allow you that mortgage payment up front because they know that tax credit's coming of 30%. Well, that makes those geothermal systems cost the same as a high efficient gas system, say. So, those are good options for you to look at out there. And again, the builder and that partnership with his HVAC contractor, those things are important things to talk about in the equation. High efficiency HVAC systems work wonderfully. Here in especially the middle part of Joplin where you already have the electric and gas utilities set up, these are easy to put in. Again, these equipment, the technology and the quality of the equipment has just increased dramatically. So for the same amount of money, you just get much better equipment, and that's to your benefit because it adds to your comfort. Different types of construction. There's a lot of talk about ICF construction now because of its durability. There's nothing wrong with having a well-insulated home that's also resistant to small ballistic projectiles. They go up fairly quickly. They're pretty durable, very energy efficient. A little more costly, but there's some great incentives that you're going to hear about today that will close a lot of those gaps too. Structural insulated panels. This is a brand of structural insulated panels. A lot of times you'll see them with plywood cladding on them or oriented strand board cladding on them. These don't have the wood cladding. They're just a light steel frame structural insulated panel. They're very energy efficient. They have continuous insulation and they're structural. They're very strong. This particular house is being built in Sikeston, Missouri. And they even incorporated a little safe room. You can see the difference in those panels where those metal cladding is closer together to make it stronger. That's their laundry room. So they just built their little laundry room out of that. And they also have another safe room in their basement. So, but if they're outside and a storm comes up, well, they can at least duck in to get some immediate cover. So, those are little things you can do. You don't build a whole house out of them because they're costly, but that little room, you put that in your budget, well, it makes good sense to do something like that. So just those little thought processes as you're putting the equation together, and work with that builder, and just little ideas like that go a long way to make a big difference. There's precast, pre-insulated foundation walls besides ICF walls. These are literally cast in a plant, brought to the job site and set with a crane. They're a little more costly again, but they're pre-insulated also, very strong. You can also do these as foundations or even above grade walls. The basics of the home, you deal with is thermal resistance. Like I said, you know, what we try to do is build a house where the envelope of the house protects you from the elements and also performs well so it will operate effectively. You know, keep your HVAC costs down, energy efficiency. And so again, if you look at when you do your budget breakdown, you know, it's a good place to concentrate is on the envelope of that house because it will pay back for the life of that house. You know, we're getting to the point again where we're building houses that will easily last 100, 150 years. The durability of the materials we can use now are of that caliber of quality. And so, you know, the paybacks on doing things like this, on concentrating on these things, is pretty quick, and then it just keeps on paying for the life of that house. Every time they want to raise utility rates, it accelerates the payback. There's an air barrier usually goes in there. We live in a part of the country, I always tell people it's the hardest part to build in. We're in a mixed humid climate here. Basically what we do is we cool half of the year and we heat half of the year. And you know, you look at basic physics where heat and wet always want to go to cold and dry. So today, you know, it's cooler, but it's very humid outside. And so, you know, inside your house, you know, my thermostat's probably set on 72 degrees, say. Well, outside it's 85 and very humid. So all that heat and wet want to go through that wall to get into the cool. And what we did for years and years was put an air barrier on the inside of that insulation on the inside wall. Well, that air wants to get in here, but we were stopping it right in that wall, right in the middle of that wall. And that's what led to all the mold issues and things like that we had, especially back in the 90s. Now we use things like Tyvek building wraps that will breathe. They'll let that air just move through that wall. We do a better job with the insulation so it mitigates the amount of the air, and especially the moisture in that air, from getting through. But knowing a little bit's going to get through, we just let it go on through. And that way we don't have those issues. And that's what helps make those buildings last as long as they do, and improves the quality, the indoor air quality, and makes them healthier for the occupants. And then roofs, you know, an important element, obviously, does more than keep you dry. You know, we're kind of getting back to what's old is new again with extended overhangs, things like that. That roof protects that whole house. It protects the walls, all the window openings, door openings, things like that. So better designs just lead to better homes. Drainage, again, water is a builder's worst enemy, and water comes in the form of bulk water like rain, or water vapor through air movement like I just talked about, or just ice. You know, you get ice and it forces water back where it doesn't want to go, up under shingles, in through flashing and things like that. So quality is an issue, and proper drainage. All right. You know, I had mentioned before about process and efficiencies. As you develop your budget, you know, you're going to cover these high spots in the road, if you will. There's a lot of minutia in here, obviously, and I could talk for 6 hours on that. But the high points, you know, obviously you're going to talk about the property you have, and then the building. Whether you're building a brand new, you have a lot, you're building a brand new building, or you have an existing building that you're going to rehab. And again, a lot of these practices apply to existing buildings. We just did a project in Jefferson City. We took a home that was built in 1913 and basically gut rehabbed it and did all these energy efficient practices with it, using the better materials, and it was very cost effective. And you know, we basically breathed another 100 years of life into that home. And a young couple bought it. We still, you know, we had to make our budget work for them, or they couldn't afford to live in there. Well, they were able to do that. They bought it, and I was there last Friday, a week ago, and she said they just got their budget billing from Ameren, and their budget billing was $60 a month. She said, we moved out of an apartment where our budget was $125 a month. So, you know, just simple steps like that, you know, thinking about the whole process and using those materials and getting a qualified person to come in and do it with you. I mean, it doesn't make little changes, it makes big changes. And again, it goes back not only to the quality of the construction, but the quality of the materials that we're able to do it with too. So you got your building, then the building envelope that I talked about, the HVAC, all your equipment designs, including your plumbing, electrical, things like that, lighting and appliances, all your finishes. A lot of my customers want granite tops or some kind of solid surface tops, which are nice because they're easier to keep clean and healthier. But they can get expensive. But if we can concentrate on these different areas of our budget, well, we can usually, we'll start with that number in the budget and then do the best job we can around it. That's why communication between you and the builder is critical, because it's your home. My clients, I find out, what do you need? What do you have to have? What can we do within your budget? How can we build this house? So maybe you don't put it in right now, but we can build this house so it's easy for you to put in the future. Every one of my customers wants solar, but it's still, there's a lot of great incentives now. The cost of putting solar has come way down. Usually it's still pretty cost prohibitive for them though, especially at the first blush when they first buy the house. We pre-wire the house for solar because in 5 or 10 years, the cost is going to come down, the efficiencies are going to go up. It's very inexpensive to do and easy to do before you drywall. And so, we just set them up and they, 5 or 10 years, they'll have some equity in that house. What better place to reinvest it than where it's going to pay for itself? So doing better than the stock market is right now anyway. But those sorts of processes is what we're talking about. Getting that house, the best house you can for your budget. You still have to get your loan set up. You have to have it appraised. The builder's not going to be able to sell it to you if it doesn't appraise. You have those factors in there. So economically it has to work, but it can. I mean, just by virtue of the fact that those material costs are now competitive, and the guys that know what they're doing know how to do this. I tell them, if I can figure it out, believe me, everybody can. All your landscaping, things like that, there's more and more focus on stormwater mitigation. It just seems like we're in a climate era right now where we're just getting obviously big storms like this, and just not just small rainstorms, but 4 and 6 inch rainstorms at once. And so we pay a lot of attention to how we landscape our lots. We use native landscaping. The Midwest here, especially Missouri, has some great native plants, red buds and dogwoods and things like that. But they also, when we have long drought spells like we were going through now, they're used to it. It's not going to stress them out like some of the exotic ornamentals will. And so we work with our clients and kind of advise them on that. We're fortunate to have the botanical garden in St. Louis that helps us too. But that whole process from the time you put the foundation in all the way till the time you plant the grass, all those things interact with each other. It's not just one system. That house is a system made up of all kinds of smaller systems, and they all can work together too. It takes about 90 people, directly or indirectly, to construct an average home. So, when the housing market is down, now you know why. It's a dramatic effect when housing is down. And that teamwork I talked about earlier, and this works for green projects or any projects. You have design professional, and that client goes right there in the middle with that project, because that's who the project is for. Your suppliers, and that getting everybody on board with you has a dramatic effect. And getting back to the 90 people, one of the things that we stress, and especially in the other HBAs in the state, St. Louis, Jefferson City, Cape Girardeau, when this event happened here, like I had told you earlier, we reached out to Crystal and folks at the HBA down here, because the builders down here also kind of took a whooping too. And we wanted to make sure that they were able to get themselves back on their feet quick enough, to take on this task they're going to have. The worst thing you can have is that way everybody, you can keep that money local. The local businesses, the HBA is not only about builders. The smallest group of members of an HBA are builders. It's all the suppliers, subcontractors, and all the supporting people. That's part of those 90 people that are involved in those homes. And so, you know, the materials are local. You know, I buy all my shingles, you know, from Tamco because they're made here in Missouri. You know, it's pretty simple. We got some of the best hardwood forests here in Missouri. You know, the prettiest floors I've ever put in homes are job finished white oak grown right here. So, you know, that's what's nice also when you do these processes. You get the local guys involved, keeps the money local and helps that economy. And obviously a good shot in the arm economy wise isn't bad. So, you know, that's kind of from the outside looking in, that's kind of our philosophy about helping these guys out here locally. It's not just the builders, it's everybody that's involved with the process and the economics of it. Again, getting back to the knowledgeable team, I've talked about this 3 or 4 times, but that's how important it is to get everybody on the same page. So anyway, that is a very quick 30,000 foot overview. And I'm hoping you have questions because I'd love to hear what you're wanting to know about the process. Yes, sir.
You build a house that is super tight. How do you take care of air quality?
Well, very good question, by the way. Thank you. You know, first of all, going into it, we know we're building it super tight, so we're going to have to pay attention to air quality. That's part of the whole process that we look at. By building it super tight, first of all, the insulation is going to be better. You don't need as much heating and cooling, obviously, to heat and cool the inside. Keep all the paid-for air inside the building envelope. So it's tight and it's durable. We build it with better materials, but we test it too. There's calculations we use to see. We find out what the occupants are going to be. You know, if it's a family of 4 or empty nesters that are going to have grandkids in once in a while, so we can kind of determine what the heat and cooling loads are going to be, and then we appropriately size the equipment. So, you know, we used to build homes that were 3,500, 4,000 square feet, and we'd put 2 systems in there to heat and cool them. Well, we're building homes of that same size, you know, 2,500 to 3,000 square feet, and putting very small units in there. They're better units. They'll run on lower speeds. They'll have variable speed fans in them, and they'll run on low speed. They'll run longer, but it's on low speed, so they don't use near as much energy. But the other benefit is they turn the air over in the house more often, draw it across the filters more often, so it helps the indoor air quality. But at the end, we also do a test on the house to make sure that we have it done right. It's a quality control process. Yes, and that's part of that equation, you know, to see what the demand is, because the question was getting fresh air into the house, because you don't want to just keep recycling that air and make it stale and unhealthy. So it's a balance that's done with the equipment that will bring in a percentage of fresh air. If we get a very tight house that has a lot of heat demand, we'll put a piece of equipment called a energy recovery ventilator. What that does is we'll exhaust part of the heated air or cooled air that we have in there, but before it leaves the house, it will take the energy that's in that air and preheat the incoming air. So you're not just wasting energy that way. It's a very efficient process, and there's another piece of equipment that's come a long way in 5 or 6 years. When we were first putting them in, you had to buy commercial units because that's where they were being used. But now they're manufactured for residential purposes, so they work very well. It costs a little bit of money, but there's a lot of good incentives out there to help pay for that too. But what they do as far as energy savings makes them pay for themselves very quickly. So good question, I appreciate it. Any questions, apprehensions? You know, how do you approach a builder? What should you do? Anything like that? You know, the best thing to do is you know, having been involved with our Home Builders Association for years and knowing a lot of the guys here, having the fortune to know guys here, so I'm not completely from out of town, but you know, they have a this HBA here has a much stronger vetting process for their members than even our St. Louis HBA does. And so, you know, they've got a good credible source going right into it. So the thing to do is contact a few. Don't just stop at the first one unless you just absolutely hit it off with them. get referrals, talk to people, and talk to 2 or 3 of them, and you have to be comfortable with it. It's your money. You're driving the wagon, and so you have to be comfortable with the process. Make sure that they have those same types of philosophies, and I would bet that 99% of them do. They have that same process, but I consider myself my customer's advocate through the whole process because they don't know the building process. That's why they need me. That's why I'm fortunate to have a job. But I help them understand what the process is. The first thing I do is listen to see what they want in their home. What's your lifestyle? Or most of my clients are empty nesters, and very happy about that. And but we set things up for what they want to do. It's usually the last home they're going to build, so we set it up for them to be there the rest of their life. And it's a neat process. So, but you need to be comfortable with that builder, and don't be afraid to ask questions. I mean, the advantage is these guys are in the market every day. They know what it costs to do certain things. All those little systems I talked about, they buy that stuff every day, so they know what those costs are, so they can tell you, well, it's going to cost you too much to do this, or you ought to spend a little bit more of your budget over here. That, make them your advocate is what you need to do in that process. But that's the first thing to do is call them and talk to a few of the guys. So and just find somebody you're comfortable with, check the references, talk to some of their former customers, and don't be afraid to ask questions. It's the biggest investment, probably the biggest investment you'll ever make. It's a very important investment now, but the opportunity is, again, with the advancements in the technologies and the building materials, you can build a much better home now than you could just 4 or 5 years ago, not to mention 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. So a lot of those good ideas with the roof protecting the house, things like that, those are still in effect, but the materials we can build them with are better. Yeah.
Earlier you said that you energy efficient things like solar,
Yes.
geo, that the bank is working with you and anticipating that 30% coming back.
The good banks will.
How would they handle it? Just have a side budget?
No, they actually, when you do a loan for a house, the bank wants 3 things. It's called PITIU, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Those are your monthly payments you're going to have on that house. But now you have U, which is utilities. And if your utility costs, if we, like those folks, that young family we rehabbed that house for, we cut their utility costs, their monthly cost for utilities literally in half. And, they've got a 1-year-old daughter. I said, well, now you can take that $60, $70 a month you're saving and start a college fund, because, I got 2 in college now, and it'll be here before you know it, believe me. And, but, those sorts of benefits are huge. It's not, there's all the global benefits, the energy efficiency, and we're not putting the biggest strain on there. And I always tell my customers, we concentrate on all that stuff, and we like to build green because it's a good thing to do. And as what we do is, it does help save the world, but we throw that in for free. That's part of the deal. It's just value. So, but a lot of lenders now are starting to monetize that. That will allow that in your monthly payment for your mortgage. That's part of the equation. And again, same way with builders, ask lenders. A lot of builders already have good relationship with lenders. I know I have a relationship with lenders now that will finance what I build, that will do those mortgages. So that's what creates a good relationship. And frankly, it's a better quality construction anyway, so it gives them a little bit of a boost in confidence too. Do you have a question, sir?
Is there a ceiling height that you could try to maintain if you're trying to go for energy efficiency?
Good. That's a good question. Also, the question was, is there a certain ceiling height you should stick with for energy efficiency? And that's a very good question, and that goes back to the design. We've kind of gotten to the market where 9-foot ceiling heights are fairly common, and I can build a very tight energy efficient house with a 9-foot ceiling or even a 10-foot ceiling height. We've done things like put larger, like clear stories, you know, where you have a very high ceiling in there, but there's windows up there, and that helps with some natural ventilation things too. It really gets back to the design and what you're comfortable with. Sometimes when you get into bigger, larger, especially taller, higher rooms, then you have to add some kind of a ceiling fan, even some kind of mechanical equipment to help turn that air around, and then you're adding to your utility costs. But you know, for a larger room, if you're more comfortable in it, you know, $100 Energy Star ceiling fan, you're not going to add to your load that much, and it'll help that whole house perform. But that's a very good question. You know, 8 foot was always traditional. Then we kind of got to 9 foot and even some 10 foot. But you know, I primarily build 9-foot ceilings, and we're able to do a very good job with them. So, and even vaulted ceilings we can do. But everybody's kind of gotten back to flat ceilings now, it seems. Yes, ma'am.
You talk a lot about the person who does the design.
Yes.
Now, how is, because usually I see, okay, does your architect work with you?
Yeah, and
How does this work?
well, there's a number of ways, and that's a good question. The question is, you know, I had spoke a lot about the design being important, which it's critically important, and working with an architect or a designer. A lot of builders do both. You know, the really, I'm not that skilled. I'm good at what I do, and that's it. But yeah, I engage an architect. We're doing one of the homes we're doing now that was tornado damaged. We have a designer that designed the house, worked with the client, you know, with our little group, and designed the house that they like. We were able to work with them throughout that whole process to make sure he wasn't designing something they weren't going to be able to afford, you know, because we knew what their budget was. And so we got him the best house he could design to stay within their budget. And what he did is work with an architect to make sure his design worked and all that. Then our mechanical guy takes that and he does those calculations I was talking about to make sure that the mechanical equipment, he does the right job with that. So it really is more of a team effort that way. But it starts with that initial design.
Designer and a builder at the same time?
The builders all work with, if the builders don't have them in-house, either they do it both themselves or they have an in-house guy. We all work with designers, you know, and we're used to working with each other. So he knows our communication process is already there. The biggest thing is bringing you into the communication process so we can figure out what you want in your house and design it that way. There's a lot of guys with stock plans. You know, most of the homes are built are already designed, and you'll find a design that you like out of their stock plans, say. And so you've just saved some time and effort in the process if they've got something that you've already liked. A lot of times you can take those and tweak them, you know, customize them a little bit too. So, but good question also.